is to cover, well, we've selected a wide variety of experts from various areas of the industry and stuck them in front of you and forced them to answer whatever questions you want to answer. Or, I mean, so what we're going to do as far as the format is, well, we'll first go through and have everybody give an introduction, kind of give the area of expertise that they feel like they can answer questions about, and then it'll be open up for you guys to ask questions. Just raise your hand. We'll have some process of picking out who gets to ask questions, and you can specifically ask for a person to answer it, or we'll leave it open to the crowd if you want.
Based on donation amount.
The in-panel purchasing will be available. All right, so starting from our left to right, go ahead and give an introduction and tell us what you'd like to talk about.
My name is Eric Slick, and I've been in the game industry now for about 20 years, on and off, and I'm best known work I did at Cgdc, and we've made some games, and the best thing I've worked on there was the Air Engine project, and that was used by BioWare for their MMO, and Bethesda's MMO coming out and used the engine as well. So I was the project manager on that and did some programming in the back end. So that's my big deal. With Christian Gaming, I started a site years ago called ChristianGaming.com. It lulled before Hero Engine started, and what I tried to do would be a comprehensive site where everything about Christian gaming that I knew about, I put it there so people could find out about it. Little did I know there was a bunch of people out there that were thinking about doing a lot of this stuff, and started a whole bunch of different game projects as you saw in the district earlier, and Christian Game Developers Convention started, and then I got my busy Hero Engine. I let that thing kind of founder. I tried to get restarted a couple times with not very much success, but I have a heart for Christian games. I want to create Christian games. I've been trying to create Christian games, and I've yet to be successful, but I've created secular games, and I've been successful there. So at one point in my life, before I kick the bucket, my goal is to create a Christian game.
My name is Cgdc Stevens. I've been in the industry as a programmer for 10 years. Originally started off working on gameplay, so doing scripting, AI, sort of stuff like that, working on the Crash Bandicoot sequel. And these days you could call me a generalist programmer. So I've developed skills in engine programming, shader-based graphics programming, tool work, the whole boodle really. These days I've been working on iPhone apps.
My name is Sean Mingman. I do not work in the game industry. However, I am the only QA tester person that they could find, so I'm not representing that role. I work either full-time or contract through companies like Microsoft, IBM, Intel, etc. I've been a lead for 6 years, and my overall experience in the field is about 15. So I've done a little bit of everything on the non-gaming side.
Gotcha. Jeremiah Atkinson. I have 16 years experience in IT. Though I don't know how that will relate specific to this. 2 degrees in theology, and I've been a teacher for the last 4 years. So more of the teaching specific to games. So there we go.
Hold on, I'm taking notes on this. So I'm G. Nice to meet you. I'm a programmer as well. I think we're well represented with programmers today. So, if you're an artist, there's drinks outside. And no artists, right? So sorry about that. And then all the designers, raise your hand. Yeah. So, oh, okay. He does have one. So just ask him all.
Not programming.
I'm a bit of a generalist myself, mainly low-level programming. So I've been working at my company for 3 years as a programmer, and then prior to that, 6 years of DigiPen. And so at DigiPen, I got to work on a lot of things, like a networking engine, did a lot of graphics work, a lot of AI stuff. What else? Yeah, just kind of a grab bag of everything, different game projects. So I got a good taste of this stuff. Written a couple simple real-time operating systems, wrote a simple compiler, stuff like that. So I like the low-level programming. But yeah, you can ask me questions about that, or just quality of life type issues. I kind of like, talking about that kind of things.
Is there an artist expert that would like to be on the panel?
I think Alex. entire time.
Alex, tell me what comic book you work on.
Okay. I studied in Sheridan College in Oakville, Ontario. 3 years of classical animation. So it's all paper and pencil and erasers. So I learned how to animate every single line, and I flip paper a lot. So in 3 years, I've been taught in animation, of course, special effects animation, and character design, layout design, color theory, light drawing, basically film, storyboard. Basically, they train us to be like one-man studio. If you give me enough time, I probably can make a feature film by myself. But yeah, so that's pretty good. But long time. Yeah, just to let you know, every second of animation, like hand-drawn classical, is 12 pictures. So 1 second is 12 drawings for me. So yeah, feature film by myself. Yeah.
Comic book.
I worked a year and a half, almost 2 years, in a studio called Dreamwave. It's back in Markham, Ontario. Worked on Transformers. So some of the issues, you can find my name on there. So yes, questions.
Sorry, I own a few copies of the Designy Transformers comics.
You do?
Yeah,
I still have a lot of them in my house. Especially the ones with my name. Never open.
Did you work on the Harada ones at all?
No.
Okay.
I worked on mostly pretty close to my boss, which is Pat Lee, and he is really busy with G1 series. So he basically did all the encyclopedia. So all the robots and
I will say we're not, I might have some name on them to check.
yeah, that was fun. Okay.
All right, so we have a much more well-rounded now panel. Excellent. So go ahead and raise your hands to ask questions, and then if you can, try and make questions that are broad so that multiple people can answer them, but if you have something specific, go ahead and target somebody specifically. Starting from the front of the room, go ahead.
I have a really broad question to start out. It's kind of philosophical, but it might be applied. It's actually 2 questions. There are a lot of Christians in the United States, and there are a fair number of game studios, but there's not a lot of Christian game studios. So my first question is, why aren't there a lot of Christian game studios? And second, probably more important, what can we do or what can be done to change that?
That's easy. You can always create a great Christian game that everybody looks at and says, that's a lot of fun, let's continue doing stuff along that line. When you look in the gaming world, RTS was first done, let's say Command & Conquer wasn't the first, but it was the one that kind of blew it up. Doors down. And one good one before that. Yeah, and all 3D shooters can trace their origins back to Doom, even though Doom wasn't the very first one. There was Ultimate Underworld was the first true 3D game out there, and it did okay. But it was Doom that blew it out the door. Now that's a full-blown genre, and everybody's doing games over and over. They make a bunch of money, so they're throwing a bunch of money at it. So when you see games in the Christian gaming world start to make money, there are people that pay attention to money. They will pay attention to what's going on, and they will want to get involved. And then you'll see a big change.
I can answer that from a board game statistics perspective, which is in the gaming industry, specifically with board games based on what I read, but it applies to other things. It's the money industry that eats its children, or it eats its seed corn before the new crop gets planted. Most of the time, 90+% of the companies that form will go under before they've sold enough copies to be able to do more than a single project. That single project will live or die, but most of the time the company will fold before it succeeds. So if you have a Christian game developer shop and put enough of like-minded individuals and they build something, if for any reason, market forces, random, whatever, it goes under, it's very, very difficult to play that game when you're already talking a subset of the population.
I'd also say that if you look at other areas of industry, like music or movies, you take, especially movies, it's the same thing. I mean, like Thomas talked about, I mean, you look at certain movies like The Godfather, as his example of just, there's outstanding funding and effort that are put into movies like Lord of the Rings or whatever example you want to use, but you don't see that with the Christian industry. But I think that comes back to philosophy. Philosophy drives everything. Philosophy makes an attitude. And maybe our attitude is, as a whole, as Christians, has been more negative towards entertainment. And we don't see the value in it. And since we don't see the value in it, then our attitude turns to a negative side. And then because of that negative attitude, we have negative actions. Maybe we don't want to spend the money on it. We don't see why we should put the effort into it because we don't see it as evangelism. And because we don't see it as evangelism, then we're never going to put any kind of effort towards it. And that's where you see the failure. And you have a few individuals. I mean, there's a reason that these seats are empty. This should be packed, but it's not. You have those of you guys and the people up here who are visionaries. And it's going to come down to us, our philosophy, and sharing that with other people to change their attitudes so that they adopt our philosophy about games and other areas of industry like movies. So that's what it's going to take to change, I think.
So I would say, you know, if you look at the music industry, right, Christian music took off, right? I mean, it's like doing really well, right? It kind of had a big boom. I haven't looked into that, you know, but just with kind of an ignorant view, I would say it's because they had some really good quality stuff, like high quality, you know, entertainment, and stuff you can't get anywhere else. So they kind of have, you know, our equivalent of a killer app, right? Here's something people can't get anywhere else. It's really good. People want to enjoy this, right? And then the you know, the money comes in. You know, the economy, you know, kind of becomes better for business. On the movie side, right? There's some crummy Christian movies. If they don't do well, you know, did you think it was going to do well? There's some really good quality ones, you know, even the ones that are like halfway decent. You know, there's some very successful ones, right? Like the Fireproof and what was the Giants or the Giants, whatever.
Facing the Giants.
Yeah, Facing the Giants. Thank you. Yeah. So those guys had like a huge return on their investment, right? And you know, was it like the best movie you ever saw? No. But it filled something that people wanted. It had a high value, right? It was a good quality, right? You know, especially for, you know, for the amount they spent, what they did was very high quality, especially considering the resources. So for the game industry, well, there you go. I mean, you know, you need a killer app.
Yeah.
You know,
That's where you take it back.
yeah. I mean, you can take kind of a game that is really something else and try to force fit it to be Christian. I don't know if that's going to fill a need for anybody. Are there games that are just inherently Christian and there's a big aha moment and it's going to fill the need for people? If there are, you know, and there's people who, you know, are going to come up with this and have the resources to make it and all that, then I think that's where we'll see some success. And maybe there have been some, you know, on a small scale. If we're going to, like, you know, jump up and be like this huge genre like the music industry or something, it's going to take kind of a lot of that, right? You can't have, you know, even just one hit isn't that good.
There used to be some companies like Enlightening, et cetera, that they consistently produced Christian games. But that whole era of Christian games, they took a traditional game that was popular and selling, and they did copycat business marketing modeling, but they targeted it to a different audience based on their channels and based on, we're going to put a Christian cross in the logo. We're gonna superficially rebrand the game in some way, but the gameplay is entirely the other game just like the other one, potentially not as good of an engine because they didn't have the budget to buy what the mainstream engine used. But they rebranded the title or the backstory or whatever, and they did okay, but I think the market has basically said rebranding a normal game in the secular market that may or may not have done well, and then building a copycat to a lower standard, to a lower budget, and just Christianizing the outside of the box and not changing the heart, it's not commercially viable.
Well, they have different audiences too. Books Left Behind, amazing success story, right? I couldn't stand reading them because they preached all the time. And one of the things that gamers tend to hate is being preached at. And if they feel like they're getting a lower quality game and they're being preached at, they're just going to push it away. Years ago at the Game Developers Conference, there was a guy that stood up at the last meeting, and he was talking about how they want to do socially conscious gaming, something that's socially responsible and help people. And he got ridiculed and laughed at because none of the people there cared about that. They cared about just making a game that was a lot of fun. They felt that all the socially conscious stuff was just a big waste of time. Nobody would want to play that sort of thing. They were, in fact, right. But the industry has gone to be more conscious socially because they've become so big, they have to be more aware of those things.
And there's generational dynamics that are changing too.
Yeah, somewhat, but it's still the same attitude. They don't really. Gamers want to play games, and if it's not a good game, they're not going to play it. Christians want a good game with Christian content because they're being starved for that content. That's why we're all up here. We want to introduce that, and it doesn't exist. However, if you take a look at movies, it was a kiss of death to have a Christian movie out there. If you were associated as a Christian movie, you were gone. Then Passion of the Christ comes along, and boom, it changed. It was a game changer for everybody. So movies are now on that cusp where they can go on to the next level like Christian music did. Because it, a long time ago, was kind of secondhand music. Fun, good music, and some really good people like Larry Norman. If you don't know him, you should, because he's really kind of the guy that kickstarted the whole Christian music industry. As flawed as he was as a person. But that took decades to grow into what it was when it started becoming successful. When albums started selling more, when they could, on average, than the secular albums, didn't have any of the big, huge breakouts on the brand. But then the other music industry got involved, and they started pouring money in, and they bought big companies because they had the money for it. And then they took it to the next level. Christian games were ridiculed because we're a Christian game. To be Christian in the gaming world is the kiss of death. What you have to do is come up with something that is not the kiss of death, a Passion of the Christ, or a good quality thing that does something different, that makes the people respect, and then you'll start getting real traction. But we've got two audiences. You've got the gamer audience, and you've got the church audience. Left Behind, as a book, appealed to the church audience. It didn't go out there and save a ton of people that weren't already saved or weren't already Christian, going to church. The church made that a success. But when you write a game and put it out there, the church is not going to make that a success because the church is not a gaming community. Gaming community is a bunch of people that don't really care much about the church. They don't care much about the Christian message. And so they're going to push back. As soon as they know it's Christian, they're going to say, their eyes shut, turn around and walk away. So there's got to be something that's going to have to shake them away. Something that's going to break through. Or bit by bit, chipping away at the attitudes and building up a new set of attitudes so that the audience can be big enough so they can support Christian gaming companies.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing. So we're saying where's the killer app? There aren't good quality Christian games all over the place, and that's maybe not fair because there's a lot of you guys and people out there who are working really hard to try to make good quality Christian games, and even if the whole game isn't good quality or something, at least maybe you really sacrificed a lot of your time and effort. But the reality of the game industry is that there's plenty of people putting in a lot of effort in doing good quality work. Where the game gets canceled, the game doesn't ship, the game is a financial disaster. There are some great games that did not make money. They lost money for it. And they're really good games. It's a tough industry, right? And so remember that too. It's not just like, oh, everybody was trying to make a Christian game, none of them are any good, nobody knows what they're doing. It's not the case. You know, we have, you know, we're a small number, right? And, but even so, it's a tough industry anyway. And then to be so, you know, segmented into this, you know, this tiny niche within a genre within a small industry, it's difficult. And, anybody want to comment on that? I was going to say something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right. Well, yeah, the other thing I was going to say is that, you know, one thing I found out from Cgdc was that these Christian bookstores aren't carrying games. I don't know if that's changed in the last couple of years, but you know, I go to a Christian bookstore, I can find Christian music, I can find Christian, you know, books. Can I find Christian games? You know, I don't know. Maybe some of them are. Maybe that's changing. I don't know.
They usually are, but they're 10 to 15 years old.
10 to 15 years
Yeah.
old.
And they're like Bible study children's games.
Yeah.
that
For full
are like,
price. That's
have
retail
graphics
cost.
from
Bible
95
trivia.
or something.
Yeah. So actually, after going to Cgdc in 2010, I heard that and I thought, oh, you know, I can't remember the last time I went into a Christian bookstore, but so I went into one and I asked, you know, the lady, hey, do you have any video games? And it was almost like shut the door in your face. I mean, it was, you know, heathens, you know, and so like, you know, it feels like almost your one, you know, the one retail place I should be able to get my game into would be like a Christian retail.
Well, they have to sell there, right?
Right. They have,
Games.
you know, inventory issues.
Grandma will buy it for their kid and
Sure.
kid will
Yeah.
play it, but you know. But it got to be something that will move off the shelf.
Yeah, that's true. And they're small and they have, you know, they have a high cost for inventory. Anyway.
I mean, it seems like we would want more of a Christian version of Steam as opposed to trying to force ourselves into the brick and mortar stores because they can't do it.
Right, and then, you know, it's so much changing with download stuff. It's a Wild West.
All right. Just so we don't end up doing the whole thing in one question.
Is this a new question or the one you were going to ask before? All right, wait. We've got a whole different series of questions.
Any comments about this?
Go ahead and ask your question, and then Thomas, you're next.
Okay, this is a question for everybody who grew up with programming experience, who works in programming in some way. I've heard a lot of people here talking about how they studied at DigiPen, they got a game designer degree, and they got something specific for the game development market who are up there. But a lot of those colleges are the more expensive or more specialty schools. What would you recommend for somebody who wants to work in programming in the video game industry and is on a community college budget?
Actually, I'm sorry, I'm not a programmer, but I'm in education. MIT has put all of their classes online for free. LearnersTV.com. So you go out to LearnersTV.com. You can watch those expensive classes for free. Buy the book, do it yourself. The reason you go to college is accountability. It's not that you couldn't learn it on your own. It's just the fact that most of us, unless we're held accountable to something, we don't do it. So, I mean, Learners TV, and then there's the fact of YouTube. I mean, I wanted to learn Photoshop, so I'm completely self-taught, and I'm pretty darn good at it because of watching videos and having the determination to learn it. And so the same is true with some of the basic game design stuff I've done and reading books.
The people I know in real life that I've talked to that actually have game development degrees, certification, etc., most of them are working in a non-related field. So if you spend the high price tag and don't actually get into that field for whatever reason, it's very likely a waste. So it seems to me you would more likely spend the money to get something that's pretty close and then use networking to get into the field using something like this to touch the game-specific aspects.
Would you say, I mean, I also understand learning from home, and I'm definitely working on that, but if I did want to get a degree at a little more, less specialized way, would you say the computer science degree is relevant to video game programming?
That was my pathway to the industry. I was just doing a software engineering degree. When I realized I wanted to do games, I just specialized in that field. So choosing electives in graphics, choosing electives in artificial intelligence. And what got me my job was that I did an honours year as just a mini project. But my project was modeling fish behaviour for computer animation. So it's just animating fish using a game engine. But you do the rigorous academic research behind all that. And that was enough to get me in the industry. That was 10 years ago. I don't think of this. But my personal opinion on the matter as well is that if you do a comp sci degree, you're getting a broader experience as well. You're not narrowing your focus just on wanting to do this very one specific role. Yeah, I think that gives you a bit more flexibility to be able to shift around a bit if you need to.
I've been talking to recruiters from various colleges in the last couple of years, and one of, like, for what I was trying to do, there's multiple paths, multiple degrees I could take, and the rule of thumb is comp sci is almost universally useful, whereas some of the alternative paths may or may not get you a specialty position, but it may or may not get you that position, it may not get you in the field, and then what do you do, McDonald's sometimes? Or if you have a choice, sometimes people are choosing, say, between artwork versus comp sci, and they want to do something on both, pick comp sci. Learn the artwork on the side, because if you get the art degree, again, anything goes wrong with your career, you have almost nothing. Anything that starts with a BS is more valuable than a BA.
That's true.
Yeah.
Now speaking for Nintendo, naturally.
Right, yeah, that's what I was going to say. So he said the N-word, which, is not supposed to, I guess there's another N-word, so. This is going terribly. So I'm not representing my company in any way, shape, or form, legal, detail, liability, blah, blah, blah. But I will say something. My boss is like maybe the only person in my group that has no college degree whatsoever, and he's like the fiercest programmer you've ever seen. It's like crazy intimidating. It's like the Matrix, I don't even see the code. It's triangles. That's what he's like. And no school. He went to school. He started going to college, hated it, and whatever. I'm out of here. Went and got a job for a game company program. It's entirely possible. To kind of self-taught. Especially nowadays, right? In his time, there wasn't all these MIT free lectures and all that stuff. However, if you have the financial resources, right? What's the fastest way you're going? Right? That's having these veteran programmers as your teachers, right? That's having this environment where everybody else is programming with you, and you're kind of sitting in the trenches, and you're at DigiBand at 10 o'clock at night, working on your game project together. You really grow in those ways. And I think you're kind of fast forward learning. So if you have the opportunity, do it. Now
let's start with professional network.
Yeah, I was going to add to the networking aspect. I've been at a company where they were only hiring Australian programming college. And so they were looking for fresh graduates who specialise just in that skill. And the bonds they form are amazing as well. Yeah.
That's a kind of a super important part. As far as DigiBand, there's a lot of good things about DigiBand. I would say that community aspect and the fact that once you graduate, you now have 100 contacts in the industry. That's got to be at least half the value of the internet. And it's expensive now. And you can record that. It's like twice as expensive as when I started. So it's very expensive. But
Thomas next.
hold on, I want to say something.
We're trying to get through.
We're talking about programming. If you're talking about game design, what we say between friends, which I probably shouldn't be recorded saying, is don't do the game design degree. You can do it, but if it's going to cost you, if it's going to be expensive, forget about it.
It's because everyone wants to be the game designer, but game designers usually are in-house people that are moved into that position after a while, so you end up having to do something else until you can get into game design.
There's no demand. There's just no demand for this job.
It's kind of like an animated film, how the director is usually an animator first. So they usually.
Everyone wants to be the director, but you have to understand all pieces before you can become a director.
Yeah.
There's an alternative to going to a traditional school these days. It's called boot camps. They're popular around San Francisco. It's like a 20-week course or something like that, or even shorter than that. And basically, you specify something like you're going to learn to be an Android developer. So they take you and they really just literally grind that stuff into you over that period of time, and they have great placement results these days and cost less. It's like $20,000, something like that, some horrible amount, but you'll very quickly realize whether you are a programmer or not in a situation like that. And secondly, if you want to know if you're a programmer or an artist or a game designer, all you have to do is look back the last 5 years of your life. Have you been programming? Have you been designing games? Have you been creating artwork? And if you never got a job in the game industry, would you continue doing that till the day you die? If you don't have that passion, the gaming business is not for you.
Yes, very yes.
Thanks, Thomas.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
So I have a question out of total ignorance, and so it might get a little offensive. So I've worked in the software industry for about 15 years, and in that I've worked with plenty of non-Christians, but I've also found many Christians. So I'm my second time coming to the CGD, and do you find that the gaming industry has the same number of Christians working in it as other industries, or something less? Like I think of like strippers. There's probably not a lot of Christian strippers because the work itself removes the Christians from it, right? And so we have a Rockstar Games about 15 minutes away from our office, right? And I'm thinking that there's probably not a lot of Christians that work at Rockstar Games. That's my guess. So
Be surprised.
I don't know, right? Again, talking to ignorance.
Or
here.
Valve,
So
for instance.
I'm just wondering, as you go about, working in the industry, do you encounter kind of the same number of Christians, or do you find it very small? Because you think a lot of the talk here is about Christians getting into the industry. I'm very curious about what people are already in the industry that are Christians.
I work directly with an artist who was Christian in my life. In the previous company, the producer was Christian. So, yeah, I can't really compare that to the rest of the normal industry, people I know. But, yeah, it's Christians.
I'd say there are fewer. I've encountered fewer, but every place I've gone, there's always been Christians there.
Is that fewer because they're not broadcasting?
No, I think because the people that are attracted to it, younger people, already are kind of, they're like pre-programmed to not be religious, in a way.
That's true.
And so you tend to, your influx is greater with that group of people than, general Christian population, or general population.
Yeah, Eric said you'd be surprised. Yeah, you would. I mean, they have a lot more experience, but yeah, my experience too, yeah, there's a lot more than you think. They're everywhere. I mean, there's Christians that work at car sales, right? And they're out to get you. You're right.
Remember Trisha salesman, he's
Yeah.
a Christian.
The dealership. There's Christians there.
So we have another question back. Yeah. Is this your original question, or is this a new question based on somebody in this row had a?
Yeah, I had an original question. I have a comment from an earlier question to respond to.
Okay.
Just in short comment that MIT has classes, there's also motion capture files that you can get that are out there. I forget if it's MIT or one of the others, but I thought that was neat.
Yeah, there's a few people who are doing that kind of thing.
There's a lot of other resources beyond education out there too. But the question is, art-related question for the programmers.
Why'd you guys drag me over my answer?
No, but it actually is broad enough that he shared it could pertain to you. So the question is like, having game idea and some sense of programming background, although mild, connecting with artists. Since you guys aren't the artists, you have to connect with them, or you being an artist, how have you been approached, kind of thing. Like, and the idea that I want to pursue excellence in my game, well, that would be seen as the artistic excellence first and foremost, and certainly the story under that and the gameplay somewhere right along that top level too. But connecting art with programming.
This is like the elves and the dwarves thing. It's like nobody even remembers why but they're just divided.
I wonder if a good outlet for that would be DeviantArt. There's an incredible amount of artists on Deviant, and a lot of them who are looking for projects, and they put their portfolio out there, And there's other sites like that, but specifically Deviant. You can go out there and just peruse hundreds of thousands of images from some very talented people to people who have no idea what they're doing at all. So that's one area that I would look at right off.
I have a clarification question. Were you asking how to contact artists, or were you saying in the contact, how do you bridge the divide?
I guess I'm looking for a practical sense of how would I go about connecting with somebody. Maybe the second what you said, like if I want to bring somebody on board with me to do a project, what is kind of your sense of how that operates?
Just ask them. Say, I'm doing this, I need this, do you want to participate? And if you sell it to them well, if it's a great idea, they'll be interested in
If your trouble is being able to specify what you need or something, is that like how do I speak their language to tell them what I?
And maybe I'm asking from how you guys approach it, too. I don't know. Like,
just what I said.
yeah.
Say,
You think, Alex?
you have to know what you need. You have to
Alex,
express
would
it.
you like to be artist?
My recommendation from just general interviewing points of view, as a lead, did a lot of interviews. Ask open-ended questions, try and listen to the heart. Have them give you specific examples. Or if they don't have any specific examples, walk them through creating a hypothetical example based on what they would do. Don't give them a series of yes or no questions, because many people will tell you what they think you want to hear, whether or not they really care. So really listen for what they're trying to say.
Let me throw this into the equation too, is what should I expect as far as a financial exchange, volunteer or not, or is that just dependent on what it is?
So that depends on the project, but I mean, it kind of depends on if you were a studio and you had a lot of money up front and a backer, you might be able to go that route, but I mean, probably a good example is Thomas and Alex working together. Thomas started in a direction and found a like-minded individual to work with him. And so, I mean, I guess it depends on the amount of money you have and what you can do. So like, I have worked on projects as an artist with a programmer, and we're working together for equal value. Neither of us are getting paid anything up front. But if we actually manage to pull something off at the end, that's great. If not, we had fun hanging out. So
Remember, artists will always work for art supplies.
do you paint with crayons?
Do you have anything to add to the mix coming from the other side?
What's your preferred pavement?
I guess I never worked with other programmers before, so I don't really know what it's like to working with the, video game, other game industry, whatever. I only work with him. What I can tell you is communication is very important, because we don't think like programmers. I think it would be vice versa. Like programmers thinks one way and artists really doesn't. Like there's many times that we agree on something. I will come back with something and he was like, what is this? That's what we agreed on. Nothing, yeah, it's, I guess that's, again, communication, and I think someone said it at the beginning, you need to really pay attention to what they say. If you guys can connect, because otherwise, yeah, when you say something, I already have like 10 pictures in my head. So I'm picking here, and you're just swapping on, right? Then the more information I get, the picture I can narrow it down to the one that you want. Otherwise, I'll be like, 10. Those 10, I like this one. But that probably is not the one that you wanted.
And all 10 of those pictures are 1024 by 1024 RGB.
Oh, yeah. That's another thing, because I came from like feature film quality training, right? So yeah, we were making Catch the Monkey. The walk cycle, it's Disney quality animated film walk cycle. It's 20 somewhat frames for one walk cycle. But in my eye, that's perfect. It's smooth. Everything moves smooth. And he's like, I just want 6. I want to walk like this. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. That's too slow. So yeah, it's
Not
just,
everything's pre-rendered, right?
yeah, so there's a lot of, you need to really be careful and work with the artist before.
If you're looking for questions also, if you're asking more about how to deal with volunteer work, we're trying to get volunteers involved, like artists. Lorraine and there's others here that have done a lot of work with volunteers. Feel free to talk to them about it as well.
I've done freelance art too, and as someone who's actually been contracted as a freelance artist, exactly what he said. Please tell us what you actually want.
Yes.
Like, can you make me some soldier guy that has some animations?
That's like,
Sure. What would you like him to wear? What animations would you like? What resolution would you like the textures? These are important little details. You might get a guy in a TSA uniform, and what you actually wanted was like an orc guy with armor or something, you know? So
Trust me.
specifics are really, really important. Tell us what you actually want, not just, be.
It
And
never
then tell us
changes.
how much you can pay. Like if you're freelance, like can you pay $30 an animation? Can you pay, we need to know your budget up front. I hate it when somebody says, so can you make this for me? How much do you charge? I do have an actual list of prices now, but I hate it when they ask that because it makes it really uncomfortable. Because then I don't know if they're going to be like, oh, well, you're probably not good enough if you don't charge too much. Or, well, that's way too much, and why are you even charging that much? And I don't like to have to explain my prices. I just want to know if they can afford what I think it's worth, and then we can. So those are some tips as a freelance artist.
Do you have something else?
Just a second, it doesn't change. No matter how long they've been in the industry, everything you do will have to be changed. Some producer somewhere will look at it and say, oh, no, that's not what I wanted. It was exactly what he said. Programmers put the same thing. So
Yeah, it's just quick, since we're answering the question anyway, a quick aside on that as well. The other thing that I found incredibly valuable in the cases where I've had to deal with artists, either writers or artists, normal artists, and projects I've had to work on these kind of things, is ask for a quick prototype. Get early art up front, get early writing done up front, get mock-ups, get that stuff done. You get a couple of those in that, because otherwise the artist goes off for a week and they come back and they've got a whole portfolio of stuff they've done and a crazy resolution with 20 frames a second, and it's just, you're like, wait, no, so start with something really small, get something done quick so that you can both agree at the beginning, visually, through a medium that the artist understands, whether they're a writer or whether they're a traditional sketch artist or whatever it is. New question?
Yes.
Excellent, go ahead.
So this is kind of a business-oriented question. You mentioned, the killer app, and how if Christian games want to break, there's kind of like a surface tension of inertia we have to break in order to be able to get out there. But it seems to me almost that the killer app, like just spending all of our efforts for making a killer app, especially considering where we all stand right now, where a lot of us are independent or small groups, killer app isn't really, I'm not going to make Skyrim with Jesus. Like, that's not going to happen.
So you're talking about the scope of the project.
I would play that, by the way.
So my question with that, perhaps a little more is, there's also, I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with the marketing guy named Seth Godin, and his big thing is a tribe. Is that you sell your thing by, instead of mass marketing, you should get it from people who already want what you want to give them, and then give them that thing. And so how do you guys think, as people who right now don't have huge resources, how can we build that community as Christians, either whether we're focusing on the actual church market, or we're focusing on non-Christian market, either one, how can we build that community so that when we have a product, we can give it to them, and then we'll have success, even on a small scale.
You're asking the programmers?
I'm asking you.
Well, let me, since you called me out on the thing, I'll just make one comment and I won't say anything else. Because I don't work in business, and so these
Yeah.
aren't issues that I'm even thinking about, to be
And
honest.
that doesn't good.
Sure, but what I would challenge the killer app thing, I mean, use Skyrim as an example. You know, in Skyrim, sure, you know, it's a huge, awesome app. But some of the killer apps that we've seen over the years, like Tetris. Tetris was a killer app, but it was a very small, simple game. You know, it was a killer app. And you know, what else? Now there's
They
like,
sold Nintendo. Between that and Mario.
I can't, I don't, so. Right, I'm not gonna, yeah. So, as an observer, I've noticed that there were a heck of a lot of Tetris and Game Boys sold, you know, because this game, you know, people still play Tetris. I'll come out of it, you know, and confess, I still play Tetris. If somebody right now challenged me to a Tetris match, it would be on, like, Donkey Kong. I mean, like, I love me some Tetris. That's a killer app. Angry Birds is a, you know, killer app, right? It's super, super killer app. Solitaire on your Windows computer, like 1995 computer, this is a killer app, right? This is like the first one that, you know, all the, you know, older women are playing this app every day, right? And, you know, I mean, we don't think of it like a killer app. Totally, right? I can't, you know, you couldn't get them to play so many games with boys up this level. But there's tons of small, you know.
Okay.
I mean, Minecraft is a great example. I mean, they're serious watch. When they first started, 3 people, and they're averaging something like $1 million a month.
You know why he did that, by the way? It was an experiment. And he just was having fun. And he kind of, then just, the whole community grew up around that and realized he could sell it.
Because it was awesome.
Yeah.
Did he know it was going to be awesome? He didn't know it was going to be awesome when he started writing. He did something he thought was great.
You put in those elements that people need. I mean, we all have needs and things that we react to. Like, actually, I think you gave a talk about that last year, if I'm not mistaken. You had a list of, what, 15 things of what we look for in games for finding or discovering, creativity, those kinds of things. And he answered those needs with that game. And I would say this, specific to your question, we are in a time that's unprecedented. You can upload something into Steam and have it available right now. You don't have to make hundreds of thousands of CDs, DVDs, or cassettes. You know, it's no longer those days. It's the fact that one person, independent, can do something. I mean, if you watch Indie Game Design, the movie, have you ever seen that? Really interesting. I would suggest watching it, since we're all games. The guy who made Fez, or the 2 guys that made Super Meat Boy. You know, I mean, they're not amazing. They're not Skyrim, which took 3 years and 100 people. It's 2 guys that sat down and decided, I want to make a game that I would want to play, and I want to make it tough. And so they made Super Meat Boy. And they came up with this cute idea, and now it's everywhere. And so I would say that that's probably the route to look at, because you can get launched very easily with not very much money up front, just time and effort.
I think one of the things that strikes me about that particular question is a lot of times our definition or our imagination of success involves selling hundreds of thousands to millions of copies. And across history, and we have the mass communication methods to do it. And so a lot of the marketing techniques out there is basically saying, well, you hit 1 million people and you get a 3% return, and that eventually gets you sales. Whereas I think, especially as Christians, I look at Jesus as an example and say, Jesus had crowds of thousands, and he routinely had hundreds of people, like he sent out 72 at a time, that followed him around, but his core relationship was 12. And so I think a lot of what we do in mass marketing is diluted marketing, or we're sacrificing quality for the sake of quantity and saying, well, it's good enough for profits. I don't think we're trying to make a profit margin as our first goal. It's a side effect of doing it right. And so to me, the better model is look at a seed, look at a pearl, each of those things start very small, put in the quality, put in the value, know your target audience. Even if you get one person, that first generation, you've doubled, and they're gonna tell somebody. And if it's great and amazing, they're gonna tell a lot of people. And then their friends are more likely to think similar to them and like it. So instead of saying, I need to go find, how do I, instead of taking the marketing view of, I'm gonna go read the research and the statistics and everything, which is all valuable, and then I'm gonna target different groups and do the mass hits part, find one person that's on fire, and they'll go find somebody else. And now you've maybe each found one person, now it's 4. And it doesn't continue exponentially doubling, but I think that's how tribes are formed, is you find a very, very solid quality fan base and watch it replicate itself. But your goal is to deliver a product.
And reward those who adopt.
Yes.
Don't alienate them. I mean, if you're the one crazy guy who's dancing out there and another crazy guy comes up next to you and you start teaching him how to dance, you encourage that because eventually the entire crowd will join you, or should, if you're doing it. So let's try it.
We should probably move on. Can I say one last thing here? You said something about killer app and all, but Angry Birds is actually the 5th iteration of the same game.
Right. Yep.
And it finally succeeded. You ask them why it succeeded and the other ones didn't, they have no idea. So the killer app is going to come out of nowhere. It's going to be the game that was written by Soma. Because it'll be the 5th game that they did, but somehow they put the pieces together in a way that clicked with people. And then that's going to take off. It's all these games that have been created and attempted to be presented to people, and they failed. It's going to lead to the next one that finally succeeds.
There's no overnight success. Everything is always built on, and you see that.
How many times do you get rejected as a writer before you get your book published? And then once you have 20 successful, amazing New York bestseller books, suddenly you can write an anthology of all the previously rejected junk books that they wouldn't publish, and it will sell just fine.
Any new questions?
Yeah. I'm going to preface this by saying I know what I want to ask, but I'm not sure you will by the time I'm done phrasing it. So I've been in the music industry for many years, and one of the things that has helped Christian music has been crossover, has been the ability to take music that will work on both sides of the fence. So I think the same thing of the movie industry. Some of the better movies are not necessarily what you would define as Christian movies. They've got the message, but they don't necessarily slam it. So my question is, because I don't know the gaming industry except through my son, is there a place for a crossover? Is that something that has happened, or is it something that's missing? I'm just thinking maybe some sort of crossover game might start an avalanche. I don't know.
Soma, I mean, you guys,
Yeah.
is that correct?
That's
Yeah,
where we're
I mean,
at.
you're not specifically
We
making
target
a
the
Christian.
secular with the algorithm. So,
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I was curious.
I mean, and I totally agree with you. I mean, you don't necessarily, well, it's like what Thomas was teaching us. You don't necessarily have to be overtly Christian. I mean, if you watch or you read the Narnia books, oh my gosh, they're incredible. They're gripping. They drag you in and you want to stay with this story. And then you can teach about it because this is an example of Christ and his sacrifice for us. And there's so many great things through the entire thing that, yeah, I agree. We don't have to be so overt necessarily.
Yeah, on the other hand, one of the things that I find is that when you look for Christian games, Christian content, like I know that I've gone out there to see if there's something that can help me grow specifically with that, and that's missing too, it seems. So I think on either side, allegorical for the crossover or specifically avoiding the secular and providing for those who are speaking.
Well, it would depend on your demographic. Are
Yeah.
you making games for Christians,
Yeah.
or are you making games for outreach? And there's room for both, I'm assuming.
Which Christian? Are you doing it for the church? Are you doing it for just kids who go to church because their parents make them? Or, you know, you making it for teachers? You gotta know what your audience is for. You know how well it's gonna potentially sell.
I think one way to attack something like that is to take games like, say, Skyrim is one example, or Civilization 5 is another example, where there's games that have a lot of long history, relatively solid engine, huge mod community, yada, 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 and say, okay, how could I leverage someone else's game that already has huge fan base and tell a specific story or a specific content, or how could I extend someone, at one level is, if you're trying to make a game, am I doing it because I want my name all over the box? Or am I really trying to do a message or a specific idea or specific content? Because if you're willing to lay down your ego and just put something out there that is true and as high quality as possible, the fastest way to do that is sometimes take a mainstream secular game that has sold 50,000 copies plus and then mod it into something that is a fun game and give that away. And I know of multiple groups that spent a lot of time, and a few, 3, 4 people put together amazingly high quality mods to say Civilization 3 or 4. And every rev of Civilization, they get asked to, you know, make a new one for the next version, et cetera, that have now spun off into actually full game shops, and game companies are being funded because they've demonstrated high quality work using other people's tools to tell quality stories. So there you've already got a tie-in to an audience that are gamers, that like quality games, yada, 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 and you can overlay your perspective, your story, etc., but it's at a higher quality than just adding across the logo.
Great, thank you.
So I'll throw something in. So outside of waiting for the killer app, right? You know, there's probably a lot of business opportunity with making, you know, a game based on popular Christian IP. Content is key in the game industry. If, you know, VeggieTales is big, make a VeggieTales game. You know, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know, maybe there are already, you know, maybe they're awesome, I don't know, but, you know, probably there's more, they're not awesome. Anyway, yeah, so, you know, I mean, I'm sure there's IP out there that is not being utilized, and it's like, there's your lower risk option, right? You know, take what you know people already like and give them the video game. Cool. And you
As
can
long
call
as
it.
you pull it off successfully.
Yes.
Because there's so many games where
Sure.
you tried the game because you loved the movie and you hate the game.
Getting a bad movie in a wrecking round, how is that possible?
Money.
A good friend of mine worked on that game.
Question from one of the Game Church guys.
More questions?
Thing? No?
Everybody would probably lynch me if I do it.
Oh,
Do it.
Do it.
Do it. I just want to bring up the elephant in the room. You know, like, I mean, I'm with you. I was in the music industry professionally for a long, long time, Christian side. And, you know, we hear crossover and that happened and all that kind of stuff. Larry Norman, absolutely. But if you ask Larry, if he was still with us, he'd probably say, you know, I don't know if I created something good or a monster. And so what are we doing here? Are we, you know, we talk about video games, which is awesome. We do it all the time, but how are we going to create something that shares who Jesus truly is, not through the American lens, not through consumerism, not through all the stuff that we're even talking about right here? I mean, how are we going to share Jesus to a kid that doesn't give a rip about Jesus because of what he's heard? And I just don't, I'm still not hearing that, like, you know, I'm hearing a lot about marketing and all that kind of stuff, which I totally get, but how are we going to use the creativity that God gave to us to go spread the gospel. You know, the Soma Games guys, like I'm stoked. Well, I'm just pointing at you guys because they pointed at you. From what I am understanding, and being in the Christian music industry when I was, there was, you know, ooh, we could, you know, we sound like this, so these kids are going to dig us. And Grandma did grab the record off the shelf because she thought it was Christian, so she'd buy it for her grandson. Her grandson liked it because we were different, a little more edgy than, you know, when, if anyone ever heard of Tooth and Nail Records?
Yeah.
So when Tooth and Nail started, I'm going to toot my horn for a second. I'm record number 3 on Tooth and Nail. So I'm a grandpa for those guys. But everybody went, ooh, something new and interesting. But we did the same thing over again, which is we were only replacing something, copying something, making something okay because we put Christian on it. I want to go.
I think Thomas answered that pretty well for us. Of praying and asking the Holy Spirit, I want you involved in this project. I need your guidance, your direction. And this is one thing I always come back to with God. When you go to describe the Trinity, yeah, you can say, well, it's like an egg, or it's like the states of water. You know what? You can't describe God fully. And you're probably not going to do a great job. And I think it's the same with games or movies or whatever. You're never going to do an amazing job, but I mean, you can strive to be excellent and amazing and ask for God's help with it. And I think that we're right at the stage where we're going to grow as an industry. But that depends on the philosophy of the people in this room.
But excellent and creative excellent in what way? Like, I think we get creative excellently through that kind of fogged up American church lens, where, you know, it becomes Christian good. And I've seen it because I've been in music, so I've seen thousands of bands do it, and they're still doing it, where it's good. I mean, it's good, but it's like, it's
You see,
not excellent.
I take a look at that, and I realize there's a whole spectrum we're dealing with here. You got the spectrum that everybody starts paying attention to, which is the one that's most popular, that appeals to most people. But then you have Keith Green. Remember Keith Green?
Absolutely.
Wonderful, just a ministry of music, unbelievable. And I had the great joy of having been at one of his concerts, and the move of the Holy Spirit, and it was just amazing. The second chapter of Acts, almost the same kind of thing. Their music and their words brought people to the Lord. They brought Christians closer to the Lord. Then, you know, now you get crossover and a lot of pretty much plain Jane music out there with not a lot of real hardcore ministry like I remember growing up with. But I think it's because we see that as the successful thing, and that's what begins to dominate. I think I hate to say this, but Christian games, they'll cover the same kind of ground. There will be the hardcore, and then there will be the popular. We hit the popular, suddenly everything else becomes better and more able to be done, but it'll be overshadowed, and people will forget that it's actually there still. I think there's validity to all those different approaches, but I think I agree with you that at some point you said to lose the heart of what we were trying to accomplish when we first started out. Trying to achieve something that allows us to become something. When Word was sold off to a separate company, I threw up my hands and said, why? Why do they need to do that? They justify it.
They were no different, sold off or not. They were the same company. I mean, and if you knew the inner workings of Word at the time too, it was a secular company. Might as well have been. Because there was no Christian anything happening.
Yeah,
It's
it
a cut.
might be at the time, it's like,
I don't know.
those
My
guys don't care
musician
about
friend
price.
probably
They care
attest
about
to that.
selling albums. And in my opinion, at that time, I thought Word cared about the Lord and about their artists expressing that. And so in my mind, it was like, at that point, the money became bigger than the ministry. And that's when, in my head, the switch over happened that you're talking about.
And all due respect to you, that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Like, we see something and we go, you know what, Word was good until they got sold off. And I really think they had a really good head on their shoulders before that happened. I can see that. I mean, as somebody that looked from the outside, I could see that happening. We saw it with other record labels as well, because other ones got bought up too. But in games, same thing. Hey, you know what, that's good, and I like that until this point. But Christians, I think we just take that popular view and go, yeah, this is cool, or this is right, and now this is wrong. And I don't think that we explore enough. I don't think we're in the Word enough. I mean, I'm totally I'm this guy. I'm not exploring enough. I'm taking what that guy up there on stage said, and I'm believing that's true instead of investigating and finding out and really being with God and really wanting Him to show me, just me and Him, what I truly should be after. I think in America, our church has got away from that, and we just follow the guy. I'm sorry if anybody hears from there, but like the Saddleback guys and the Mariners guys and the Mars Hills guys, and we just listen and go, okay, let's go do that. Instead of like really, really having a relationship with God and going out and spreading that gospel,
And I
the
think
true
that's what
gospel,
matters.
to the people that we need to be doing.
Because games aren't called to preach the gospel, you are.
Right.
We are. I mean, a game can be a pointing tool, but ultimately, we are the ones who are called to evangelism. And the most successful evangelism is relational evangelism. Yeah, you can stand on a corner and yell at people, and maybe you'll change one perspective, but that's not successful as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Success is when you go over to your neighbor's lawn and you mow it.
Yeah.
That starts a relationship, and those relationships are what ultimately change people. We may not be able to do anything more with games than point to Jesus. Maybe
I'm
maybe
just
nobody will
calling
always
this
say,
out.
yeah,
I want to see
No, I think
real,
that's good.
true excellence.
I
I
totally agree
really
with
want to
that.
see us do something excellent.
Because
Let me
I
tell you,
throw
the
in-
Christian music industry, or these Christian musicians, worship leaders and stuff like that, there is a ton of talent and quality there that we don't express in general as, I mean, there is talent here, but we're not even on the same planet when it comes to the level of talent that is available to the Christian music industry right now.
But the industry is a lot older, I would say that.
A lot.
So, I've been thinking about related questions a long time, and I may not exactly understand the question you're asking, but I think I've got something.
I'm kind of not. I'm just, whatever.
So,
When first becomes shallow.
first and foremost, we are supposed to preach, but head knowledge is not enough. So ultimately, we have to personally live it. If you don't have the relationship, you can't give it away. The devil can quote scripture perfectly and yet never uses it correctly, ever. So it's first and foremost, it has to come out of our own life. And then no matter what we do, for me at least, it always comes down to identity, relationship, and action. Almost everything that has a value or is eternal in my life touches one or more of those three things. Anything else is junk or whatever. So when I'm creating a game or a role-playing book or whatever it is, am I touching people to have them understand their identity in Christ? Am I encouraging them to have healthy relationships with themselves, with other people, and with God? And am I encouraging somehow to put those first two things into action? And when those three components come together, there is an amazing explosion and people change. And if those elements are in our game, at a minimum, we're going to be encouraging that culture, and hopefully we're giving people tools to then go farther with that. So ultimately, we have to live it. There's no magic bullet. We don't have a super amazing silver bullet that will somehow, the right game, the right whatever, will take the world for Christ. We are the image of God on the earth. The game will never be. So just like the Bible, which is perfect for certain things, is merely a pointer to God. You study the Bible so that in it you think you have eternal life, but it points to me, but you won't come to me. Our games can be exactly the same thing. No matter how good the Bible is, the Bible will not give you eternal life. The Bible will not produce abundant life by itself. So, on one hand, we have a business. On the other, we have profit, we have marketing, we have all these things. but the end goal is it producing abundant life or not? And that's about us. Individually, collectively, globally. Does that help at all? Is that sort of what you were asking?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
However, my baseline, I'll make it in a sentence. I would hate to see another fireproof slash, what was the series that you don't like either?
Left Behind.
Left Behind,
Yeah.
let's not do that. Because some people think that that's excellence.
I hear that you get past the fourth or fifth book.
Okay,
Fourth book, I quit.
Cry.
I couldn't take it anymore.
I thought Fireproof was excellent. I will say.
That was a good movie.
You know,
I think it was the
And
best
Buddy
acting.
did,
So
and
considering
David
a
message,
David
considering a local church made Fireproof, I thought they did a good job, so.
Yeah, these are like the church members that are getting together to do this. And I
Yeah,
thought-
that's what
I mean,
I
considering what they had to work with, they did an absolutely wonderful job.
So, Chris, you had your hand up earlier, do you want to make points?
Oh,
Question.
I was just, there's a bridge, I think, between the conversations that for me goes something like this, is I don't give a rip if anyone gets what we're doing. What I care about is whether or not what we're doing is an accurate reflection of what's in my heart and in my life. And so, for me, when you quoted out, Thomas, that these masters were, their artwork, their masterpieces were expressions of their life and the life within them. If no one else gets it, who cares? Ultimately, what you said, Shan, is that it's and I think you stepped on your own toes, is that you started to talk about that it has to come from within, which I think is true, but then you finished by saying it has to produce life in someone else, and I don't think that's true. I think that bridge is up to them.
Lighting a torch.
I think it's like, if we want to believe that gaming is an art form, then it has to be an expression, which means it faces out. How people respond to that is their thing, and that's driven by the spirit or not. But if I try to put myself in their shoes and try to see, like, how's this going to be received, then it's no longer an art expression, it's a tool to beat them, or teach them, or encourage them or something. And it can be with a good intention, but it's not art then, it's a tool. And so we just have to decide, are we making art? And then it's personal. And the truth is, you know, no one may ever get your art.
That's your thing, are we making art?
I
like what, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, you know, that thing, the two movies, like, that's exactly it. Are we making art?
He makes art.
I want to.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Because I made some records about one art. And I was trying to sell some Christian records. Really? Yeah.
We are more than welcome to
Correct.
continue this conversation. In fact, I think it's wonderful, and obviously, for those of you that have been
Sorry.
more than a few years, this conversation shows up fairly frequently. It's great fun to have. We still have one person who had a question at the beginning who didn't get a chance to answer it, and then Thomas had his hand up for a while earlier, so I wanted to let him jump in for one comment, and then we'll
May
move
I
to
have an
questions.
answer really quick?
Okay, do it quick.
And before we go into the question. So I think your question was like, okay, so what should I make, right? That's kind of the question.
Not me, no.
Maybe not you, but that's the question of what should we make? And when I was doing research for the talk that I just gave, I came across Thomas Blackshear, who made that painting at the very beginning that I had on the title, which was Forgiven. And he prayed, he knew that he needed to make a spiritual painting, okay? Like his company that he worked for said, we want you as an artist, and he's done postage stamps, and he's done all the members of the Star Trek Next Generation crew as collective plates, and he's done like all kinds of illustration. They said, we want to hire you to do a spiritual painting. And he went to the Lord, and he said, what should I draw? I don't know what to do. And he prayed, and he fasted, and he waited, and he waited. And I think that's something we don't do. We don't wait. And so he waited, and bang, the Holy Spirit gave him that picture. And he just painted it. He just made it. And when he was done, he's like, I don't even know if this is good. I don't even know what the Lord's going to do with this. And he put it out there, and it boggles my mind, but people that have seen that painting in Christian bookstores have fallen to their knees and cried, just seeing the picture over and over again. This is the kind of feedback he got back. And he was like, wow, the Holy Spirit asked me to make something, and I made it, but I didn't know to what end. And he starts receiving this stuff back. God wanted him to make that painting. And I think Rembrandt's paintings, personally, I think Rembrandt's paintings are better than Thomas Blackshear's. But that's very subjective and opinionated, right? So I really think we have to go to the Holy Spirit and ask him, what do you want me to make? What does the Holy Spirit want Thomas Thomas to me? What's does Wilkes-Barre want Chris to me? And those will not be the same thing.
That's true.
All right, so, all right, so we're gonna catch you guys off. We're more than welcome again to carry on conversations, but we'll try and get the last question here, and then we've got the meal ready.
Hey, Alex, what advice do you have for an artist that's going to join into a game?
Advice. Well, there's one thing that always works, just don't stop. I've been drawing ever since I know how, and I just never stop. You can only get better. You can't get worse if you keep drawing. I don't know what else, like more specific, or you have in mind, or yeah, but I think in general, just don't stop drawing and keep looking at like things that really trigger, I don't know how to say it, trigger your fancy or whatever. Yeah, like inspiration. Like I'm pretty sure there's certain style stuff you look at it, you're like, that's not me. But there's certain style you look at it, you're like, oh, that's really pretty. So pay attention to those things and look at the detail. Look at how they do it, and then kind of steal or learn from it.
Can I just say, when I ask my question, how do I connect with an artist? A lot of the answers they give would be, you'd want to be on the other end of that. So deviant art, they mentioned just making connections with those who are in the game community, so that you can like make those two kind of paired up. And he hadn't really been in the game side at all in that side.
Yeah, I might be able to. I mean, I know I actually studied art for a bit and studied a lot about the industry and that. Well, like you said, you always draw a ton, carry a sketchbook with you, put together your best work, keep an updated portfolio. Because as great as it is to go to a school to study art, what any company looking for an artist is going to care about is your results. So someday maybe you'll go to college for art. It depends. Whether you do or not, you want to put together the best thing you possibly can, because that is what's going to matter to a company. It's nice if you have a bachelor's in something that's related, but if you go up to a company and you have great artwork and you show that you have skills, that's all they want. So just keep making your best work, like you said, keep drawing, draw every day, and study light drawing, draw things around you, draw things that doesn't seem like that to do with video games, but it's important. And the better you get, that's all that really matters in the end, as far as art.
I would add to that, also find a really good mentor, find somebody that you respect, constantly be willing to listen and to improve. I have Netflix, and I saw something called Hero Dreams of Sushi. I personally hate sushi. I love catching fish. Can't stand sushi, but I watched this documentary because it was about the best sushi maker in the world. He charges $300 a plate, and the reason he can do that is he's like 89 years old, and he has devoted his life to making perfection. And he is constantly, even now, he's known as the best, but he feels that he needs to find a way to make it better every day. He's constantly looking for ways to improve this experience for his customers. So watch it from that perspective of how can I apply this to my own life? And so find other artists, stay around inspiration like he was saying, and be willing to improve, find a really good mentor, and stay focused, and realize that it's not about doing one big project necessarily, but developing the philosophy of a continual artist. I'm going to constantly work on improving and growing and learning, and that will make the difference. Don't just let it be a light that burns for a short time and then burns out, but try and keep that thing going inside of you.
I'll make a quick comment too. One major difference between doing art for games or like just painting on your own or something, when you're doing production art, you have to like pump it up, pump it out really quick, right? So I mean, here, pump it up, pump it up. Anyway, where the heck was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So what you might be doing now is like, you know, you spend 4 or 5 days, you know, drawing or painting this great, you know, you're making this great illustration, you're showing your mom, I drew the picture, you stick it on the fridge, right? As a production artist, I mean, you gotta like bang those out quick, and it's a very different mindset. You can't sit there making a masterpiece. You have to, like, you know, make good, you know, make good quality art really rapidly. And so that's kind of a major difference in production art.
I guess one final tip that I have is pay attention to a lot of detail stuff. I mean, it might sound weird, but when I go to anywhere, I look at all the details. Like, I look at how the chair was made and why is it that shape. This is inside of that thing. How? Like, from the good art and the kind of not so good, the big differences is in the details. Like, if you can show a lot of details, it's nice, it's very impressive, versus if you can have 2 paintings exactly, but this one has way more detail, this one has a little bit of detail, but it's the same painting, you can tell this is like way better. So that's a little trick that we learned in school. Like, yeah, pay a really deep, like, just look at all the things around you and draw like everyday thing. Draw this, draw a phone, draw a microwave, and try to do all the details. Like, why is that line there? Why is that line like inside, not outside? How come I cannot see the line from this perspective? Like, you gotta think like that.
And when you're working at your game company, put the details in the texture. Don't make more polygons.
And yes. Programmer don't like that.
No.
There's one more thing that will guarantee you a job forever. Be an artist, a good artist that also knows how to program and likes it. Technical artists are hard to find, and they always have to do jobs on those occasions. If you don't worry about it.
And then career path, programmer.
So the meal is here. We have food set up on the back table just outside behind the wall here. We'll hang up